Hello YouTube, this is Ryden here with my newest MOC, which I call the Camera Spider. Now this was a request, a suggestion by a friend of mine on DeviantArt called Hydro Phoenix in response to a page on a comic of mine called Hero Faffery. Now a bit about Hero Faffery is that the characters often break the fourth wall, and so they occasionally talk about a black machine that follows them around, namely the camera. And so the suggestion was that I actually build one. However, I believe I have taken it one step further and made it into a transforming MOC, making it either my third or fourth, depending on whether you count Endeavour/Toxic as one, because there's removal of the pieces there, so that doesn't really count. Anyway, so I will show you the transformation in a second, partly because it's so much easier to go from the camera to the spider, and there's much more that I want to talk about with this unit. So, talk about the camera first. I started with the lens made out of tyres. Hold on, let me remove the lens cap. Hey. The proportions of the camera were taken roughly from the one that I own, which is a Canon 550D. You can see the resemblance there. I didn't actively try and make it an exact replica. I just tried to make the proportions roughly the same, just so that I could hold it more easily, get a good idea of how big the different parts should be. The second part that I made was the flash, which is the eyes from the Paraka. I don't know if you can see it in this lighting, but those actually flash. Yeah, you can kind of see that. And obviously it folds down as well, like so. One comment about the general structure of the camera is that it's definitely a Hero Factory build and not a Bionicle build, and that means that there are far more ball joint connections as opposed to axle connections. And personally, I don't like that. I think that it flexes a bit too much. There isn't a solid shape of the camera. So every time I make transform and retransform, it makes a very slightly different shape, but it's still relatively the same. And I can hold it just as I would with my Canon, including the buttons there on the Kuroda helmet. I quite like that. Let's see, the tyres spin as if I'm zooming. It doesn't actually spin outwards. I don't think I have the capacity to do that. But yes, I think that's all that I wanted to talk about with the camera. I kind of want to take a picture of myself actually using, holding the camera as if I'm actually taking a photo with it. And I would upload that, but anonymity and whatnot. Anyway, moving on to the tripod. There's a bit less to talk about with the tripod here, but well, I would show you the tripod that I used to, as influence, but the video camera is currently sitting on it, so I can't really do that. Each leg is almost identical, apart from this back one has slightly different limbs, but for all intents and purposes they are the same, and it's very, very sturdy. I suspected that it might have been a bit floppy because of these the rounded feet, but it's very sturdy, mainly because each leg is attached by two ball joints, and so excuse me, when each tripod leg can split into two, and so the one way that I made it sturdy was to make sure that the connections were not at the actual articulation points of the legs, meaning that when the two legs go together they both have to be straight. So that's one thing about that. There's not an awful lot left to talk about with the tripod. Tried to keep it silver and grey. That was quite fun. A few black pieces on there, but oh well, I'm not that bothered. Yes, I think that's everything. So, we shall now get on with the transformation, which I'm sure was what you all came here to see, or something like that. Right, so stick that back on there, start off with the spider's eyes, which are the flash. The one original plan was to have 8 eyes, as spiders, you know, actually do. But part of the problem was that finding 8 eye pieces and stuffing them somewhere where they wouldn't look out of place on the in the camera mode, that was a bit weird. The spider fangs come down like that. The body of the camera splits into 2 legs. Pulled on a bit too far there. And also part of the camera makes the body of the spider. I haven't actually done this transformation that many times, partly because the MOC as a whole was a bit on the rushed side, because I kind of have to get this photographed today and have to do this video today, and I'm off to uni at the weekend, so yeah. Even though it was a bit rushed, I'm quite happy with it. Also, there were a number of different concepts that I considered when actually doing this, different degrees of transformation, that is. For example, one was to have no transformation at all, i.e. just keep it as a camera on a tripod and it doesn't do anything else. I thought I'd give myself a bit more of a challenge. There was also the idea that I'm doing now, where it's a camera and tripod, separable, but both of them can transform to become a spider with legs, as I'm doing so. A third one was that the camera itself doesn't do anything, and that... hold on, where did that come from? It doesn't usually fall. Was that the camera itself doesn't do anything, but 8 legs come from the tripod. Now that was a bit... I discarded that one because getting 8 legs on a originally 3-legged tripod might be a bit much to ask. Partly because, well, where are the other 2 legs going to come from? There are two possible things I could have used. It's a bit hard to tell you about it, but there's often a stick that goes vertically down so that the camera can move up and down. I could have used that, I guess, but I didn't really like that idea. I thought, you know, it might sacrifice some stability issues and proportions and whatnot. And I quite like the kind of symmetry that I've got here. Anyway, I believe that's the transformation done from into the spider mode. I'm generally quite happy with the spider mode. It's you know, very stable, because even though each of the legs is individually quite thin, the weight is spread quite evenly. Probably the only thing I don't like about this are the bulky bits here and here, because, well, the camera's got to have substance, and so that substance has got to go somewhere, and it can't be all aligned in a thin leg like that. But in any case, a bit like, you know, that Transformers character. If it's a household object, electrical object turning into some kind of alien thing, I don't think proportions are what people are going to be worried about, because, you know, come on, it's for the novelty, isn't it? Well, actually, speaking of proportions, I would have liked it if the tripod legs were a bit more cylindrical. Right now they're a bit too, you know, flat, and I've already done the transformation, so I can't show you what I mean. But yes, this is the spider mode, which is, I think it's quite freaky, quite fun. A comment on the actual proportions of spiders. I know that this, you know, it's not quite right, because the legs should kind of go up and then down, as opposed to going down, down, down. And the number of, not entirely sure how many articulation points there are in spiders' legs, but it's inconsistent here, at least. But I'm not that worried about that. The camera lens becomes the abdomen. It's obviously, with its cylindrical shape, it doesn't look quite as natural, but then again, does this really look that natural with 6 silver legs and 2 black? Let's see. Not much else I wanted to talk about, actually, now that I think about it. So yes, that is my Camera Spider with transformation. So thanks very much for watching. I'm Ryden, so hopefully see you again soon.